Hi everyone, this is Ing, and I am doing my Wednesday, today's Wednesday, right? Tuesday edition of Praise You, my daily chats with friends and people in the creative industries that I'm hoping, hi Karen, I miss you, that I'm hoping to do daily for a few more weeks, and they're my way of catching up with my friends and with people that I think have really important insights. Today, my friend Lucas Kwan Peterson is joining, and he's just the best. I really miss you, Lucas. And when you can, please request to join me on this chat, because we're going to talk about a really important industry that is adjacent to everything, including the creative world and the art world, but we're going to talk about the food industry and the restaurants. Lucas has incredible insights because of his position as the food columnist at the LA Times. And you requested? I can't see you. What? Sorry, guys. I don't know what's going on. Oh, here. I don't know why. Sometimes that prompt doesn't come up. All right, we're going to get Lucas on in a minute. And right now, tell me where you're coming from and say hi. What's up, my love?
Here we are. Hi. Hi, England.
Hi.
How are you?
You know, to be honest, this has been a hard week. I'm sorry to start it that way. You know, it's been a hard week. Like, just with, I think, a lot of work and emotions and kid stuff accumulating, and it's been like very emotionally trying, but talking to people like you every day has been great, and I'm so grateful for you to come on. How's life in LA?
Things are good.
Yeah.
Things are starting to warm up.
Meaning temperature or
a little
heart?
bit of a little bit of both. I mean, definitely temperature. Things have gotten really hot this past week, and
which feels like a year.
It feels like it's been a year since all this stuff started. But people are like, I think it's affected the people too. People are like antsy.
Antsy, yeah.
People are like out, and our official shutdown day, I think, is still until the 15th or 16th of May. But there's a real sense that people are kind of over it. So we'll see what happens. But there's like a lot more people out just this last week. A ton of people,
really?
A ton of cars. Like, I don't know if you saw photos.
Are people respecting the social distancing rules?
Well, did you see the photo? There were a lot of people at the beach this weekend.
Oh, yeah?
In Newport.
I did not see those photos.
Yeah. So I would say less so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get to like serious stuff, I'm drinking a soba iced tea, which is very delicious. What are you snacking on or drinking?
I'm drinking coffee. Black coffee.
Nice. Oh, yeah, because it is 10 a.m. for you. Cheers.
Cheers.
So for those who are joining, this is my chat with Lucas, and he is the first person who is technically right now not an artist or someone in like the direct visual or performing arts community that I've interviewed and had a chat with. However, Lucas has this incredible background, and I'm going to embarrass you for 30 seconds right now, because you see that handsome face? The handsome face has been on TV and in all sorts of things, but he also won Jeopardy years ago, and he was, on the pilot episode of Westworld, and this is all, and he also, weren't you like a James Beard nominee for when you were at Lucky Peach? You were writing for Lucky Peach?
I was.
Or did you win?
No. Only a mere nominee. I did not win.
Right. I think you lost to like Martha Stewart that year or something like that.
No, but Martha presented my award, and I was hoping I would win so that I could take the award.
Oh.
Accept the award from Martha.
Yeah. Well, so you started your career, we went to college together, and you were a big theater guy, and also studied, you studied abroad, you did all sorts of great things, and then you went to LA to become an actor, right?
Yeah, I think I moved to LA at the end of 2006, beginning of 2007. I had some vague aspirations for that. But then I got a job at Google, and I worked there for a couple of years, and I wrote about that experience for Devin a couple of years ago. And
right, so my husband was his editor. You guys have to read this crazy piece that Lucas wrote for GQ about his job at Google. It was crazy. Yeah. So then you left because that was traumatizing.
Then I left, and then I kind of had a floundering acting career for a while, and kind of kept it going with like little pieces of work here and there, but then eventually sort of needed to make a left turn and went fully into writing.
Writing about food. And then travel. And then you were also the New York Times Frugal Traveler for a good chunk of time too, which was an insane period of your life where you were off to a different country almost weekly. But you've been in LA for quite a while, and now you are covering food, and so you're the food columnist at the LA Times, right?
Yes, that is right.
Okay. And so, I wanted to talk to you because, you have your background as a performer, but you're also covering this industry now that is oftentimes serviced by people in the arts and serviced, in terms of people who are working in the restaurants, delivering. I mean, it's the whole gig economy. And as we all know, most artists don't sit in their studios all day and have a prolific, wonderful career as an artist. They're hustling and doing 20 different jobs. So I really wanted to have this dialogue with you about not just what the industry is doing, but kind of as a whole, how the structure of our society in terms of supporting people in these various industries, how that's looking right now, and also how you think it should look after all of this is over. But I know it's a big thing and we don't have very much time, but you recently penned a piece for the LA Times about the PPP. And I read it, but do you think you could tell people very quickly about what your position was on that?
Yeah, so the Paycheck Protection Program was the centerpiece of the CARES Act, which was signed into law at the end of March. The idea that it is going to give assistance to small businesses and individuals that are being affected by the shutdown. And what became apparent is that all the money went to rich companies. That's the gist of it. Like, all the money ended up going to these multi-million-dollar conglomerates, these multinational restaurants with thousands of locations, people who truly didn't need the money.
Right.
And the people that got shut out were mom and pops, people with, just one location. It was very discouraging, very disheartening. I think what sort of became apparent is that the big banks ended up processing the bigger loans first. And so if you went through Chase, or if you went through B of A, or if you went through Wells Fargo, you really got the shaft. And some smaller businesses were able to have luck through their smaller regional banks, community banks. But a lot of people who, if you didn't have an established business banking relationship, if you weren't ready, if your banker wasn't going to process that application for you at midnight the day it opened, you were just out of luck. And so $350 billion was gone in a couple weeks, and most people never got a chance to see it. So there was a lot of backlash. I wrote a piece about it. A lot of the companies that I wrote about ended up giving the money back because it looked really bad. It looked really bad that Shake Shack took a bunch of money, and it looked really bad that Ruth's Chris took a bunch of money. So
can I ask you about that real quick? So, like for Shake Shack, I believe they were the first big food company to say publicly that they would return the $10 million that they received through the PPP. But do you think they did it because there was the backlash that people like you were reporting on it? Or do you think that they woke up one day and realized, oh man, this is wrong? I mean, do you know how that actually played out?
What do you think?
Right. I mean, I assume it was the bad press, but
I would also assume that. I don't know that for a fact, but I think it looked real bad, and especially when you saw again, just like hairdressers and small grocery stores, people who really needed this money to help bridge this time, they weren't getting the money, and I would assume it's because of the press.
Right. Tom Colicchio wrote, or he was quoted in, I think, Grub Street, the New York Magazine vertical, that the PPP is just like, it's not helpful, but also not helpful in terms of the logistics of it, right? That you have, like, just in terms of the timing of like how you have to retain your workers. And, by then a lot of them are on unemployment, like in terms of how the industry functions. It's not helpful. Is that correct?
I think, yeah. I mean, I think Colicchio's situation is probably different than most small independent restaurants because he's famous, man. But I agree. I don't think it's helpful for most businesses. I understand how it was structured in theory. The idea that, this came in the end of March, the idea being that, by mid-May, that they would give you 6 weeks of payroll to help you bridge the gap between the shutdown and when the shutdown ends. And they'll say, here's the money that you can use to pay your employees so you can stay open during that time. So, like, I get it. I get the thinking behind it. But the problem is nobody got the money. Like, nobody got the money. So they're totally behind as far as getting the money to the people that actually needed it. Now, as far as it's structured, where it's if you get the money, it's a loan that becomes a grant if you use most of the money to pay your payroll.
Right. I think it's like 75% of it.
Right.
Yeah.
The problem with that becomes, I think in the restaurant industry, you're required to reopen by the end of June. And I don't think anybody knows when they're reopening. I also don't know if, you're maybe being asked to reopen your business when you don't know if you have customers. You don't know if your business will be open. You don't know if restaurants are going to open at 50% capacity or 25% capacity. There's also sort of a weird situation where a lot of people who are, like you said, they're in this, in the service industry as sort of second professions because they're artists, they're musicians, they're actors. They're kind of getting more money on unemployment right now because they're getting an extra $600 a week through the end of July. So in some cases, if you're making $1,000 or $1,100 a week to do nothing, like on unemployment, like, does it make sense to go back to your job? It's just like the whole thing was kind of weird. It just didn't really work. But the main problem is nobody got the money.
Right. So, I mean, you're friends with many, many people in the restaurant industry. How are they doing right now, assuming that, some of them are doing takeout? I mean, is that even, is the cost benefit analysis, does that make sense for them to be open for takeout?
No, it doesn't. But it's maintained, I think the value in it comes from, it's a way of staying busy and keeping your people busy and keeping your people like mentally occupied and keeping people's skills sharp, keeping people within, keeping people in your group and not letting them leave because, in a lot of these businesses, the relationships are really close and you feel like you have to take care of people. And
and you've invested in your workers and you want, it's hard to retrain people. Yeah.
So this is not money making. I mean, I think it's enough for some businesses that are doing it pretty well, doing like mini groceries within their restaurants or their doing takeout. I think it's sustainable-ish, like best case scenario. But you're not making any money. So it's enough to keep some people on the payroll and paid, and I think that's what most people are trying to do. They're just trying to do their best to tread water as long as they can.
Yeah. So there was this interesting piece in the New York Times last week by the owner of Prune Restaurant. I don't know if you read that one, but Gabrielle Hamilton, right? And honestly, like I skimmed it, but there was something going on social media where an art critic read the article and said, wow, fascinating to me how the restaurant business model is so similar to the art gallery model. And you know, I mean, I think that deserves a little bit more analysis, but I can see that, right? You know, restaurants are working on very small margins for the most part. You know, they're dependent on people coming in and purchasing a service. And a lot of it is word of mouth, honestly, or, you know, good press, right? It's not, and then it's a service, right? It's something that like you have to put your body out there to create the work and to create the transaction. Of course, there's like online initiatives and there's a big online platform called Artsy for galleries, but, you know, people predominantly interact with art and movies, you know, all sorts of art forms on a very personal basis. But the way you open a gallery, for example, in LA or New York City, is like, you know, you're kind of like doing this month by month for the most part. And I've learned a lot that that's also often how the restaurant industry is. Is that from your observation also similar?
Yeah, I think probably most people that have restaurants would tell you that it's totally fucked. Like the model, it doesn't make any sense. It's there's so little room for error, and as you can see, you know, within a week, places started shutting down. Places have no runway. There's no runway for this kind of thing happening. It's very much a cash in, cash out business. Yes. What you take in that week, you know, it goes to the following week, and you need that money. And it's such a delicate ecosystem. So there's so much involved with your labor and your suppliers and then your customers. There's this really delicate balance where if one thing gets thrown off, the whole system just gets thrown out of whack. And so the way that it's built, where, you know, restaurants feel pressure to keep prices down because people have an idea in their head of like what a salad should cost. And but there's not really an understanding that, well, if you're getting a $9 or $10 salad, like somebody's getting screwed, like somewhere along the chain, like someone's not getting paid, or the product is questionable, or or you know, the people working in your kitchens, you know, aren't getting paid or compensated or getting benefits, and like, there's so much that's wrong. The tipping model is so wrong. Like the way that servers have to survive most of the time based on tips is completely ridiculous. Like the tipping model, it's been shown that it's extremely racist. It's extremely sexist. It's so that whole thing is ridiculous. It's the restaurant model is broken. I mean, maybe. So
do you feel like this is? Sorry, but do you feel like this is a good time? I mean, for a reckoning of this, like as much as we don't want to see restaurants go under, if there has to be a systemic change to how they're operating, is now a good time to rethink that? Or do people even have the energy to do that? I guess that's my question too.
Maybe. I'm trying to remain hopeful. I am really not looking forward to looking a month from now and saying, okay, which places a month from now, this is assuming we that things are open in a month, 2 months from now, and saying, okay, well, these restaurants have reopened and these restaurants closed forever, because I think a lot of them are going to close forever, and that's going to be really sad. That's going to be a really sad moment, because so many of those businesses are going to be the small businesses that didn't make it, and the ones, the Shake Shacks and the fast food, those places will be fine, and then that's kind of all we're going to be left with, because these small businesses can't make it, and I think some of them will sort of survive. They'll kind of, maybe someone has like a good deal on their rent, someone owns the buildings, but it'll be purely based on luck, whether someone can survive this. And, maybe there will be a reckoning as far as how, the restaurant model is built right now. I definitely think there's going to be way more of a leaning towards takeout and towards to go from here on out. There's, maybe, some of the businesses that are sort of built for this and that are doing okay are like pop-ups. So places that have no overhead, places that can just sort of go wherever they want.
Like the food truck scene in LA, are the food trucks still operating?
The food trucks, I've seen some food trucks. Food trucks are still operating, and the food trucks, frankly, over the last few years have not been doing very well. But maybe sort of this will be their time again, and we're kind of going back to 2009 and 2010 when Roy Choi opened his Kogi truck, and the truck kind of became a thing, and there was this wave of food trucks, and maybe we're just going to kind of repeat history all over again, where people that can't afford, brick and mortar places will just get trucks.
Yeah. We have less than 10 minutes, so if you have questions for Lucas, put them in the comments. And also, this is Lucas Kwan Peterson from the LA Times food section. One thing that I've observed over these talks is just, a lot of people's concern is when we reopen, how is that going to look? How are people actually going to fill theaters, fill galleries, fill museums? And I say that with you because, if you go out to the theater, what do you do before? Or what do you do after? Yeah. You have a meal, what's that? I mean, all the restaurants near Lincoln Center, right? You have your set times to eat before, because they know exactly when all these shows are going to go on. This is exact same for Broadway, same for the ballet. And now, as we are not, entertaining ourselves in these ways, it also affects how you dine out beforehand, if you even do that. Or afterwards you go to a bar or go have like I always just go to Chinatown and get something really cheap to eat, and it's a great night because it's open late, but now the landscape of what that looks like is completely unknown, and that's also very strange, because I feel like all of those things go hand in hand. But I think so much of this is dependent on the other, right? Like, you can't just have the health of the restaurant industry without the health of arts and culture, without the health of the sports teams going back on. I mean, that's a huge question. When is baseball going to go back? Basketball? And I mean, I'm sure the NFL will go back because they're just going to be like, we're going to have football no matter what, But yeah, I mean, those are all big things, because dining out is part of the experience of, your Friday night or your Saturday afternoon. But yeah, I'm really hopeful that we can figure it out. But, I spoke with my friend Andy Whitfield from the Minnesota Opera the other day, and, they're probably going to have to stagger seats, right? As they're not going to fill to capacity. And same with movie theaters. I mean, who knows in Hollywood when, movies are going to be back in the theaters.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, or even when they can go into production for stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. Noah had a question. I imagine costs are going to skyrocket in travel and dining out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, maybe if like in Alaska, they've reopened now, and they've reopened dining in at 25% capacity, and where everyone wears a mask. And I think you're not allowed to be at a table with a group unless it's like people in your household. Like there's all these rules, and I don't see how that is sustainable for I just don't, these businesses need to operate at capacity in order to make money. So maybe we're looking at a situation where restaurants have to raise their prices, and that's just how it is. Which I guess would be fine. I mean, I don't know. It would also make dining out a lot less accessible to people who can't afford it. As far as the air travel, I don't know. I think a lot. They've definitely cut down on a lot of the flights, but I feel like a part of the $25 billion bailout package. I feel like the airlines had to run their flights. Like they were running empty planes from coast to coast. Yeah. Like sort of as part of the deal.
I know, it's so weird.
I feel like maybe there will be some money subsidy in there to keep air travel slightly affordable. I as far as like accommodations, I imagine stuff like Airbnbs and hotels might get cheaper, would probably get a lot cheaper. But restaurants, I don't see how they I don't see how the prices go down. Right. Certainly. Yeah.
Interesting. That's a very good question.
But you're right about how everything's interrelated. Everything is affected. When people stop spending money, everything is affected. Like even the things you wouldn't think are affected are affected. People in the medical profession, like I was talking to my dentist, and my dentist is like, we're really in trouble. Like we can't see anybody. And
my father's a dentist.
Oh, okay.
My father's a dentist. He's been my cousin too. I mean, I'm from a family that they've been closed. Yeah. They've been closed. I mean, that's like the number one, danger for a dentist is like aerating from someone's mouth. All the, my father closed like well before he was required to in Boston. Right. It's very sad, and my cousin's an orthodontist, so kids are not getting their braces tightened, and it's not an emergency. But, it means that she's lost a lot of income over the last couple of months. Yeah. And, she's still trying to pay her staff, and she's trying to pay her rent. I mean, there's, these are professions that I think we once thought were completely safe financially. And they will be once they can open, but this is a huge loss.
Yeah, I think if we're going to shut things down, which I think is for public health the responsible thing to do, then we have to really shut everything down. Which means you shut down rent, you cancel rent for 3 months or whatever. Like that has to be a part of it. You can't just shut down some people's way of making money and not others. It's like the tenants cannot be expected to make the landlords whole during this time. Right. It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense.
Lucas, we're out of time. I could talk to you a lot. I miss eating with you. The last time I went out to LA, he took me to eat. I know we went and had Cambodian boat noodles, and brought my friend Sean Evaristo, who I think you didn't know was a vegan. So that was a whole thing. But I wanted to ask you one last question before you go. What are you most eager to eat once you can go back and eat inside a restaurant?
Oh man, I kind of want to, like, as soon as we can be around people again, I'm gonna be around people as much as I can, and I want to go to like a big old food hall. I'm gonna go to medieval times, and like I want to combine show with food. I want to just like be surrounded by people eating. Like,
amazing.
I just want to enjoy that kind of thing while we still can. So.
Yeah. Oh my God, medieval times. I wonder how they're doing. You should do a piece on them.
I'm sure they're not doing great.
But you know, if the medieval times ever showed us anything, is that we can get through a plague. I mean, you know.
This is true.
So. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lucas. I appreciate you, and I hope you're going to stay safe. And you know, I'll keep watching you. I saw you cooking on Instagram Live the other day. That was fun.
Yeah. We do lives on our LA Times food feed so check us out on LA Times Food.
Cool. And this will be up for 24 hours, and then I'll archive it in my stories. But thank you, honey. I miss you, and I hope to see you soon.
Bye.
And tomorrow is going to be noon with my friend Marguerite, a prop stylist. So we'll hear what that industry is dealing with too. Okay. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye.